Hi, my name is Jen. I am a soon-to-be self-published author, bumbling my way through the process from first draft to first publish. And I am so excited to be here today talking a little bit about margins, bleed, book size, and just the excitement around working with KDP as a whole when it comes to self-publishing. So I did want to chat a little bit beforehand because I spent this weekend with people in my life that are not necessarily in the publishing or self-publishing community that were asking questions like, what is the difference between indie published and self-published and things like that. And I will definitely say I'm not an expert, but for me personally, I am self-publishing through Kindle Direct Publishing, which I have heard use the term indie publishing to refer to that. But sometimes indie publishing also refers to working with an independent publisher, like one of the smaller publishing houses. I have heard, I've never looked at any sort of contracts, but I've heard when you work with the big publishers, you kind of have to sign away more rights and have less control of the final output. But working with independent publishers, that's not the case. I don't know specifically, so I don't want to go into too much detail there. What I personally am doing as a self-published author, as I consider myself an indie author. I'm publishing through Kindle Direct. Specifically, I'm getting all my proof copies through Kindle Direct because it's very easy and free to work with. And then I do intend to also upload my documents onto Ingram Spark for expanded distribution, except for the ebook version, which will be available only through Kindle, so that I can take advantage of some of the benefits of being exclusive with Amazon. Okay. Hope that was helpful. Today I'm really excited about this topic. So I'm going to show you some things. I'm obviously not going to be showing major portions of the study because it's not quite at a place where I'm ready to share that. But today we are talking about size, margins, layouts. How am I doing all of that? And I'm going to show you, I actually have two books that I had shipped to me. So we're going to look at kind of the difference is I've had a lot of people look at both of them, especially over the weekend. I spent a lot of time, like I said, with friends this weekend. We were on a trip celebrating someone else's birthday, but did some focus testing where I had people look at the two. I did them differently and got feedback, and so I'm excited to talk a little bit about that. So the first thing that you have to decide is what is the size of the book you want to buy, right? Or the book you want to sell. When I did my Alpha Readers copies, I just uploaded the document that I had already created in Microsoft Word. So it was 8.5 by 11, very simple and streamlined. Because I wasn't really worried about that at the time, I just wanted to get the book itself into the hands of other people. Additionally, like if you look inside, it's actually right there. It's the alpha copies. The cover is something I whipped up in literally the Kindle Direct Publishing cover creator. It doesn't have a spell checker on there, so there's typos on the back. I just threw some content together to fill in the template. It doesn't have a table of contents. It doesn't have a copyright page. It doesn't have any of that. It's literally just the study itself. Because again, I wanted to physically put it in the hands of people that were providing feedback. I wanted to physically hold a copy. It made me feel like, oh my goodness, this is real. That moment, right? When it came time for the beta test, my beta readers are not getting physical copies of the book because my beta readers are giving a different type of feedback. So the beta readers received digital access to documents that they could then put in recommended comments and upload those files. So I originally wasn't going to print anything, but then I realized what I need to be doing right now in this time while it's in the hands of beta readers is making decisions about bigger things. So I purchased 2 copies of the book. I put beta print on the front. I didn't even bother for the cover, really. I mean, I obviously made a cover because you have to upload a cover file, but the cover that I made is random graphic from one of the artists that I have been working with in the process of deciding who the artist is going to be. And then literally like words and my name. But the things I wanted to look at is I wanted to look at the size. I wanted to look at the the font sizes inside, and I wanted to look at the page colors. Now, when I did the beta test, I printed it in cream. Cream is the paper I prefer to read on when I'm reading fiction, fantasy. It's a little bit easier on your eyes. And so I fully expected that I would be printing this Bible study in cream. And then I was like, well, since I'm ordering a second copy, I might as well try it out in white. Here's the thing that I will say. Every single person I have handed the to and said, question number 1, white or cream? There has been one person who said they preferred the cream, and the only thing they said was that the white looked cleaner, but the cream was easier to read. So all of that to say, if I was writing fiction, fantasy, those kinds of books, I think I will still stick with cream. If I'm going to sit down and just read through a book, the cream. With it being a Bible study, it is really more of you do 2 or 3 pages total a day. So that was the first thing. The second thing, I made this document, the original beta copy, and the way that I got these sizes was I measured Bible studies that I had, and I found the closest on the list on the Amazon website, the closest size to that. But it's a little bit bigger than what I want. The problem was, to be just a little bit smaller, I had to go significantly taller or significantly shorter. Like, this dimension, to just shrink it by ½ an inch on both sides was not an option. Then I discovered I could put in my own numbers. So this is pretty close to 7.5 by 9.5, and this is straight up 7 by 9. So I made all the documents, I flipped them all over, which was not a painless process. I flipped them all over to 7 by 9. I reduced all the fonts by 1 because I wanted to see what it would look like a little bit smaller as far as the actual fonts inside, and was getting ready to upload this. When I went to actually upload this and I selected 7 by 9, Kindle had a pop-up that said, this size may not qualify for expanded distributions. As much as I honestly prefer this size, everyone has preferred this size, I probably will not publish in this size, specifically because it sounds like at this time, this size is not something I can do for expanded distribution. I'm gonna do a little bit more looking into that, figure out what that actually translates to. I don't want to have like multiple versions. You know, my people pleaser self is like, I could have a cream and a white one. I could have one that's large font and small font. I could have one that's 7.5 and one that's 7. But I can't actually do that because it would literally drive me insane. But also it affects the charts. When you have a whole bunch of different ISBNs, it doesn't allow your book to start trending. Now, am I egotistical enough to think this book is going to start trending? Definitely not. But for God to move in that way makes it significantly harder if there's 900 versions. And for people that want to support me, you know, even if they just want to try to get me in the top 100 of whatever category this ends up being under, if everybody's buying different ISBN numbers, it doesn't have that effect. So I really do want to stick to a situation where there is one version. And so because of that, I'm not going to go with this size, even though I do like this size better. Everybody likes this size better. I feel like it fits better. I like that it can actually like fit in my purse, whereas this one's just slightly too big for that. But I don't want to end up limited because I chose a custom size. I do wish that Kindle would make this 7 by 9 a size. The first thing that we looked at was size. The second thing we looked at was color. This is what the cream looks like. It's probably not going to be super obvious difference for you on camera, but like I said, everyone has really consistently agreed the white looks cleaner. The second thing I looked at was font size. I think this is size 10 font and this one was like size 11, so it's not like I'm doing a size 8 or anything like that, but this just looks better. It looks more professional. One of the other things I noticed, I have been trying really hard because I don't want this to be a super thick book. I don't want it to have any more pages than necessary. And so I have laid out my story in such a way that it goes literally to the exact top. But one of the things people were saying was that it just looks crowded. And so then I went back and looked at some of the Bible studies that I have that have been printed from, you know, Lifeway or whatever, they have more space at the top and they have kind of like headers. So there is content that close to the edge, but it's not like the content of the study. I've avoided headers and footers aside from the page number because I want to have as much content on the page as possible. And I'm realizing as I work on this that that is not necessarily the best way to go. The combination of the fact that I will be going with the larger size book and the smaller size font, I held those up backwards. Larger size book, smaller size font. The combination of those things I think gives me a little bit more peace that I'm still going to stay in the 150 page range to go, okay, let's go ahead and add some headers, add some footers, create a little more buffer, don't go all the way to the edge, create a little bit more space in the page just for the content to breathe. So that is definitely something I will be, because I'm so excited about redoing layouts. But seriously, that is what I will be doing on the next version. So when it comes to like layouts and all the rest of that, what I wanted to show you, and I will have this link in the description, but it's super easy to find. I constantly re-Google it. But there's this thing, trim size, bleed, and margins, and it's really in the Kindle. I spend so much time on this Kindle Direct, which is great. Like, I'm fumbling my way through the process, right? So under book formatting, there's a lot of things to look at: creating front and back matter, downloading cover templates, things like that. But what I specifically wanted to talk about today is here when it comes to setting trim size, bleed, and margins. Now, I will say this video is actually really valuable if, like, I'm gonna try to explain it as best I can, but this video here on this page, which again, I will be linking to this page, is really, really helpful. So if you are in the process of trying to figure this out, I would encourage you to come and check out this video. But the thing that took me a while to get my head around was the difference between trim size, bleed, margins. Like, it just all kind of merged together in my brain. So the concept is that trim size is literally like the printed size of the document. What bleed does is it allows you to have content that goes all the way to the edge of the page, because there is a little bit of like, it could shift in printing. And that's true for all printers. What bleed does is make it so that if you want something to go to the edge of the page, it goes a little past the edge of the page. So when it cuts, you don't end up with like a random white line because it shifted a little bit and your graphic doesn't go to the edge of the page. So margins is the distance from the edge of the page, like whatever your trim size, and the content. So your content has to be inside the margins. Even when you have bleed turned on, Kindle Direct will kick it back and give you errors if there are words in the margin. So the margins is like, inside of that is where all the content needs to be. At least for me, it's kicked it back multiple times if there were words in the margins, even when I had bleed turned on. The bleed on the flip side is how much space you want to go outside of the page dimensions for that trimming. And so because I am working with an illustrator, I'm gonna have to use the bleed setting. So what I did is I took the trim size and I added the bleed, keeping in mind like bleed is got different numbers, but I took the trim size and I added the bleed, and that is what I used as my page size for my settings. And then for my margin settings, I used the margin plus the bleed. I did my layouts in Microsoft Word. There is a lot of debate online about whether you should or shouldn't use Microsoft Word. So I'm gonna just say the reason that I did my layouts in Microsoft Word is because I wrote the study in Microsoft Word and I was using styles to help me like organize everything in Microsoft Word. I do have Adobe InDesign, and I have made 2 attempts. I have a plan on how to do it a little bit easier. I'm going to make a 3rd attempt at moving it into InDesign before sending it to the illustrator once I choose which one of the 3 I will be going with. And the reason that I'm going to be doing that is because then they can put their graphics right into InDesign and I can draw the lines onto it and things like that, and I can send them the document. It also gives you a lot more flexibility about placement and margins and all the rest of that. The challenge for me is that I have used, I think, like 15 different styles to keep this whole book organized. So again, if I was writing fiction, you have essentially like the style for your chapter headings, you have the style for your book, right? And then maybe you have like a quote style, or maybe you have like a style that you use when there are letters inside of it. I have daily headers, section subheaders, questions with content, like where it's a question and then there are bullets that they fill in, and then questions without content, which is where it's a question and it's just a random blank. There are, I think, 15 different styles. And again, by using styles, it means that every single thing that's tagged with the question style is consistent. Because I set all that up in Word, every time I imported it over to Adobe Illustrator, it looked awful. So what I'm going to try this time is I'm going to go into Adobe Illustrator and recreate all of the styles that I already have in Word, and then try importing it again. If that does not work, then I'm going to stop beating my head against the wall and just go with Word. Why do I bring all that up? There are a bunch of people out there who say you cannot make it look professional in Word. You have to do it in Adobe, otherwise it's gonna look like you're an amateur and whatever. And what I will say is every single person I've handed this book has said, wow, who is your publisher? And I've said, oh, I'm self-publishing. They're like, who did your layout? And I'm like, I did. So yes, this is done in Word. Yes, there are some things that have been a headache. There are limitations when you are laying things out in Word, but it does not mean that you cannot make something that looks professional. It just means it's going to be a little bit more finicky, and you have to be a little bit more patient, and you have to work a little bit harder. But on the flip side, it is a tool that a lot of us are familiar with. Most of us used Word in high school, college, elementary school, whatever. Most of us have access to Word, if not owning it personally through our jobs or both. And so I just want to encourage that you can lay out a book or a study or whatever in Word and it can still look good. Just watch some tutorials and really pay attention to your headers, your margins. Like there's a lot that you can learn online. Everything I've done, I found watching YouTube videos, which is why I started making YouTube videos. Everything I've learned about doing these layouts has been from YouTube videos, and it is possible to make it look good in Word. Want to give you that encouragement, take some of that pressure off. Like if you lay it out in Word, it'll be fine. The one thing I will say that you should invest in, if you can afford it, is to invest in Adobe Acrobat. And the reason I say that is when you convert to PDF and you only have the free PDF reader, there are just sometimes mistakes. There's also a stitching situation. So I'll give you an example. I output the main text, and then I output some things that I wanted to include in the back pages, some test pages for some of the other things that I'm doing with the illustrators and stuff like that. And because I own Adobe Acrobat, again, because of my job, but because of that, I was able to stitch things together. I was able to make corrections there in PDF instead of having to stitch things together in Word. Now, for me personally, because this is a study, it is not a book, there are endnotes, and I cannot in Word make things appear after the endnotes. It's just, I've tried everything I can try because I have it set up to where footnotes show up at the bottom of the page and endnotes show up at the end of the book. Because of that, there was no way for me to put pages after the endnotes, but I was able to output it to PDF, and then I was able to just output a separate PDF, and then using Adobe, stitch those pages together. I know that there are free PDF tools, there are inexpensive PDF tools. I would encourage you to own a PDF tool instead of using what is free. Personally, Adobe Acrobat just has features that are really, really helpful. So because when you're uploading your own book to Kindle, you are uploading it as a PDF, I would encourage you to, if you're going to invest in anything, at least invest in Adobe Acrobat. But again, you can do it without that. You can print a PDF from Word even if you don't have Adobe Acrobat. You just will be a little more limited, again, in what you can do. So I don't know if this is helpful. I know this is a little more mechanics based, but I have been so excited by what these look like. As far as front matter and end matter, and maybe, I mean, I have already gone 27 minutes, so maybe I'll talk about front matter and end matter next week. It's starting to become reality, right? My whole life is flipping on its head. I'm buying a house in 2 weeks, and I'm publishing a book in a couple of months, and my life is at this fever pitch of excitement, and I'm so thankful to have you guys along the journey with me. Thank you for comments and likes and being here. And I am excited to continue sharing this story with you. I will do my absolute best to continue posting a video. I'm recording them on Sundays. They usually go up like Monday morning, like 2 a.m. But I will do my best to continue doing that. Be aware, next weekend is my last weekend to pack. The weekend after that is the weekend I am moving into my new house, so I'm not going to commit to videos being weekly for the next few weeks, but I will do my absolute best. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your support and encouragement, and I will see you in the next one real soon.